There are places you walk into every single day. Not physical spaces marked on maps, not buildings with addresses, but invisible territories where something essential about you begins to fade, where the person you were meant to become quietly disappears, replaced by something hollow, something borrowed, something that was never truly yours. You don't notice it happening. That's the danger. You step into these places thinking you're just passing through, just surviving another day, just doing what everyone else does. But each time you return, you leave a little more of yourself behind. Until one day, you wake up and realize you can't quite remember who you were before. The face in the mirror looks familiar, but the person behind the eyes feels like a stranger. And here's what makes it unbearable. Everyone around you seems fine. They inhabit these same places without question, without resistance, as if this is simply how life is meant to be lived. So you begin to doubt yourself. You wonder if maybe you're too sensitive, too intense, too different. Maybe the problem isn't the place. Maybe the problem is you. But what if the opposite is true? What if your discomfort in these places is not a weakness but a signal? What if the part of you that resists, that feels the wrongness, that refuses to settle, what if that's the truest part of you trying desperately not to disappear? Understanding where your essence goes to die sounds dramatic, perhaps even melodramatic, until you meet someone who has lost themselves completely, someone who once had fire in their eyes, who once spoke with conviction, who once knew what mattered. And now they move through life like a ghost in their own story, performing a role they never auditioned for, speaking words they don't believe, pursuing things they don't actually want. The philosopher Martin Heidegger spent his life thinking about this quiet tragedy. He didn't call it sadness or depression or failure. He called it inauthenticity, the gradual replacement of your genuine self with a constructed performance designed to fit into a world that demands conformity. He understood that most of human suffering doesn't come from dramatic catastrophes. It comes from the slow erosion of being, from living in ways that betray what you know to be true about yourself, from inhabiting spaces that were never meant for the fullness of who you are. And he identified the places where this erosion happens most powerfully, not to condemn them, not to make you afraid, but to help you see. Because once you see where your essence goes to die, you can choose differently. You can learn to recognize the feeling of departure, the moment when you begin to leave yourself behind, and you can decide whether to stay or to walk away. The first place is the marketplace of endless comparison. You know this place well. It's where everyone displays their best moments, their achievements, their curated lives, where success is measured not by internal fulfillment, but by external validation, where you scroll through images of people who seem happier, more accomplished, more beautiful, more alive than you feel in this moment. And something shifts inside you, subtle at first, a small voice that says you're not enough, your life isn't enough, your progress isn't enough. Everyone else has figured out the secret you're missing. Everyone else is moving forward while you stand still. The marketplace of comparison doesn't just make you feel bad. That would be too simple. It does something more insidious. It replaces your internal compass with an external one. It teaches you to measure your worth by metrics that were never yours to begin with. Career milestones, relationship status, physical appearance, material possessions, likes and followers and public approval. Heidegger called this Das Man, the tyranny of they. They say you should be married by 30. They say you should own a home. They say you should look a certain way, earn a certain amount, achieve certain things by certain ages. And the more you inhabit the marketplace of comparison, the more they replaces I. Your desires become borrowed, your goals become imported. Your very sense of self becomes a reflection of what others expect, what others value, what others applaud. I once knew someone who spent years building a career everyone admired, prestigious title, high salary, recognition in their field. From the outside, they had succeeded beyond measure. But inside, they felt hollow, because none of it was chosen from a place of genuine desire. It was all chosen from the marketplace, each decision made to impress, to compete, to prove worth through achievement that could be displayed and compared. When they finally walked away, people called it a crisis, a breakdown, a waste. But it wasn't any of those things. It was a return, a decision to stop living for the marketplace and start living from the self they had abandoned somewhere along the way. The marketplace of comparison destroys your essence because it disconnects you from your own truth. It replaces the question, "What do I actually want?" with "What should I want?" It replaces "Who am I becoming?" with "Who should I be?" And in that replacement, something essential dies, not all at once, but gradually, quietly, until you realize you're living someone else's life in your own body. The second place is the echo chamber of borrowed beliefs. This is where you adopt ideas, values, and convictions, not because you've examined them deeply, not because they resonate with your lived experience, but because they come from your tribe, your community, your inherited worldview. We all need belonging. Heidegger understood this. We are social beings thrown into worlds we didn't choose, raised with languages and beliefs and values that shaped us before we could question them. But there comes a moment in every authentic life when you must examine what you've inherited. When you must ask, which of these beliefs are genuinely mine and which am I simply carrying because everyone around me carries them too? The echo chamber feels safe. Everyone agrees. Everyone reinforces the same truths. There's comfort in collective certainty, in knowing exactly what to think about every issue, every person, every possibility. But this comfort comes at a cost. It costs you the ability to think for yourself. It costs you intellectual autonomy. It costs you the capacity to encounter something new without immediately filtering it through pre-approved categories. And more than that, it costs you the ability to change, because in the echo chamber, changing your mind is betrayal. Questioning is weakness. Uncertainty is failure. So you become rigid, defended, closed. You stop genuinely listening to anything that challenges your inherited framework. You stop growing in any direction that might separate you from the tribe. The person living in the echo chamber can speak with great confidence. They have strong opinions about everything, but ask them why they believe what they believe, and you'll find borrowed language, repeated slogans, arguments they've heard but never truly examined. Their convictions aren't rooted in personal investigation. They're rooted in tribal loyalty. Heidegger called this idle talk, speech that circulates ideas without genuine understanding, that repeats what they say without personal verification. In idle talk, words lose their connection to reality. They become tokens of group membership rather than expressions of authentic thought. The danger here isn't that you might believe wrong things. Everyone believes some wrong things. The danger is that you stop thinking altogether. You stop engaging with the world directly, with fresh perception, with genuine curiosity. You see only what your inherited framework allows you to see. You think only what your tribe permits you to think. And the unique perspective you might have offered, the insights that could only come from your particular experience, your particular way of being, never emerges. Your essence dies in the echo chamber because essence is individual. It's the irreplaceable particularity of your existence, the way the world reveals itself specifically to you. But the echo chamber demands uniformity. It rewards repetition. It punishes deviation. And slowly, without noticing, you become a mouthpiece for collective beliefs rather than a voice speaking from genuine understanding. The third place is the comfort zone of safe predictability. This might seem like the least dangerous place on the list. After all, what's wrong with comfort? What's wrong with building a stable life, with routines that work, with knowing what to expect? Nothing in moderation, but there's a difference between healthy stability and existential stagnation. There's a difference between choosing comfort consciously and hiding in comfort unconsciously. And many people spend their entire lives in the latter, building walls of predictability so high that nothing unexpected can reach them, nothing challenging can enter, nothing transformative can occur. Heidegger understood that human existence is characterized by possibility. We are not fixed entities with predetermined natures. We are beings capable of becoming, of projecting ourselves into futures we choose, of transforming through encounter and experience. This is what makes human life meaningful. The fact that we can change, grow, transcend our current limitations, discover capacities we didn't know we had. But the comfort zone of safe predictability closes down possibility. It says, "This is who I am, and I will protect this version of myself from anything that might disturb it." It builds a life of repetition, same thoughts, same conversations, same activities, same people, same perspectives, year after year after year. And here's what's insidious. It feels responsible. It feels wise. Society applauds the person who has it all figured out, who maintains stability, who doesn't make waves. But beneath the surface of this applauded stability, something is suffocating. The part of you that needs challenge, that needs growth, that needs the friction of encounter with the genuinely new, that part is starving. I've watched people age rapidly in the comfort zone, not physically, though that happens too, but spiritually, energetically. They develop a kind of deadness in the eyes, a resignation, a sense that life is something to be managed rather than explored, endured rather than engaged, survived rather than lived. They tell themselves they're being prudent, realistic, mature. But what they're actually doing is protecting themselves from the very experiences that might awaken them to deeper possibilities, the new relationship that might require vulnerability, the career change that might demand courage, the philosophical question that might unravel their certainties, the creative project that might expose their limitations, the travel that might shift their perspective, the failure that might teach them something they desperately need to learn. The comfort zone destroys your essence, because your essence is not a fixed thing to be protected. It's a dynamic process of becoming. It's what happens when you engage fully with life's challenges, when you allow yourself to be transformed by genuine encounters, when you risk the security of who you've been for the possibility of who you might become. And when you refuse this risk, when you barricade yourself in safe predictability, you don't preserve your essence, you calcify it. You turn it into a monument to a version of yourself that was never meant to be permanent. And the aliveness that once characterized you, the curiosity, the wonder, the capacity for surprise, slowly dies behind the walls you've built. The fourth place is the performance of perpetual productivity. This is perhaps the most praised place on this list, because in the modern world, productivity is virtue. Busyness is status. The person who is always working, always optimizing, always achieving, that person is admired, envied, held up as a model of success. But Heidegger would ask, productive toward what? And at what cost? Because there's a difference between meaningful work that emerges from your genuine interests and values and relentless productivity that's simply running from something, from boredom, from emptiness, from the uncomfortable questions that arise when you finally stop and sit with yourself. The performance of perpetual productivity fills every moment with activity. There's always another goal, another project, another achievement to pursue. There's no space for rest that isn't strategically scheduled, no time for contemplation that doesn't serve some future objective, no permission to simply be without simultaneously doing. And beneath this frenetic activity lies a troubling question. Who are you when you're not producing? What's left of you when you strip away the accomplishments, the projects, the constant forward motion? Many people refuse to find out. They stay in perpetual motion because stopping means confronting the possibility that all this productivity has been a sophisticated form of avoidance. Heidegger distinguished between two modes of engagement with the world. One he called ready to hand, the absorbed instrumental relationship we have with things when we're using them for some purpose. The hammer when we're hammering, the keyboard when we're typing. The world as a collection of tools for achieving our goals. The other he called present at hand, the contemplative relationship we have with things when we simply observe them, when we let them be what they are without immediately trying to use them for something. The hammer considered not as a tool, but as an object with its own properties, its own existence. Most people today live almost entirely in the ready-to-hand mode. Everything, including themselves, is viewed instrumentally. Am I being productive? Am I making progress? Am I optimizing my time? Even rest is approached this way. Rest for the purpose of better performance tomorrow. But your essence doesn't reveal itself through constant productivity. It reveals itself in moments of quiet presence, in experiences that serve no purpose beyond themselves, in the parts of life that can't be optimized or monetized or turned into achievements. The person trapped in perpetual productivity knows what they've done, but they don't know who they are. They can list accomplishments, but they can't articulate values. They can describe their schedule, but they can't describe their soul. And when they finally do stop, through illness or burnout or some external force that makes continuation impossible, they often experience a crisis of identity. Because their identity was never rooted in being, it was rooted in doing. And without the doing, they don't recognize themselves. Your essence dies in perpetual productivity because essence isn't something you achieve, it's something you discover. And you can only discover it when you create space for it to reveal itself, when you allow moments of unstructured time, when you engage in activities that serve no purpose beyond the joy or meaning they provide in the moment, when you stop treating yourself as a project to be optimized and start experiencing yourself as a presence to be inhabited. The fifth place is the numbness of constant distraction. This place is everywhere now. It's in your pocket, on your wrist, on every screen. It's the endless stream of content, notifications, updates, messages, videos, posts, news, entertainment that fills every gap in consciousness, every moment that might otherwise be empty. And that's exactly the problem. The gaps, the empty moments. Because those are where you meet yourself, where thoughts you didn't know you had begin to surface, where feelings you've been avoiding start to emerge, where the deeper questions about your life, the ones you don't have easy answers for, begin to form. Constant distraction protects you from these encounters. It keeps you on the surface, always consuming, never reflecting, always stimulated, never still, always entertained, never truly present. Heidegger lived before smartphones, before social media, before the internet. But he understood this dynamic perfectly. He wrote about how modern technology changes our relationship with reality, how it turns everything into standing reserve, resources to be extracted, optimized, consumed. And he worried about what happens to human beings when we live entirely within this technological framework, when we lose the capacity for what he called dwelling, the ability to be genuinely at home in the world, to experience presence rather than just processing information. The numbness of constant distraction doesn't feel numb. That's the trick, it feels engaged. You're always interacting with something, always responding, always involved. But it's involvement without depth, connection without intimacy, engagement without presence. I've watched people scroll through their phones while sitting in beautiful places, while eating meals with people they love, while experiencing moments that will never come again. They're there in body, but not in consciousness. Their attention is fragmented across a dozen different streams, never fully settling anywhere, never fully experiencing anything. And over time, this becomes a habit of being. You lose the ability to give sustained attention to anything. You lose the capacity for deep reading, deep conversation, deep thought. Everything becomes shallow, rapid, surface level. Your consciousness starts to mirror the technology, fragmentary, reactive, always searching for the next stimulus. But your essence lives in the depths, not the shallows. It emerges when you give sustained attention to something. A book, a conversation, a problem, a question, an experience, a person. It reveals itself when you stay with something long enough to move past the surface, to encounter the complexity, to feel the weight of genuine engagement. The person living in constant distraction experiences a peculiar kind of loneliness. They're always connected, but never truly meeting anyone. Always consuming content, but never truly thinking about anything. Always busy, but never truly engaged with their own life. And the tragedy is that they don't even realize what they've lost, because you can't miss what you've never experienced. If you've never known what it feels like to be truly present, to give your full attention to a single thing, to inhabit a moment completely, then you don't know you're missing it. You just feel a vague dissatisfaction, a sense that something is wrong, an emptiness that no amount of content can fill. The sixth place is the cage of others' expectations. This is where you live your life according to a script written by someone else. Parents who had dreams for you that weren't your dreams. Society that has definitions of success you never questioned. Partners who want you to be someone other than who you are. Friends who relate to a version of you that isn't quite accurate. And you perform. You play the role. You become the person they expect, the person they need, the person who makes them comfortable. You make decisions based on what will please them, what will avoid conflict, what will maintain approval. Heidegger called this falling. the tendency of human existence to lose itself in the expectations and norms of the social world. It's not that the social world is bad, it's that it has enormous gravitational pull. It's easier to go along, to conform, to become what others want you to be. It requires courage to resist, to individuate, to claim your own existence. The cage of others' expectations is particularly cruel because it's often built with love. Your parents want the best for you. Your partner wants you to be happy. Your friends want you to fit in. But their definition of best and happy and fitting in may have nothing to do with what's actually true for you. So you end up living a life that looks good from the outside, but feels wrong from the inside. You achieve the things you were supposed to achieve, but they don't bring the satisfaction you were promised. You become the person you were supposed to become, but you don't recognize yourself. And the most painful part is that you can't easily blame anyone, because no one forced you. You chose this. You chose to prioritize their comfort over your authenticity. You chose to avoid disappointment over honoring your truth. You chose the safety of approval over the risk of becoming who you actually are. I've known people who spent decades in careers they hated because their parents sacrificed for their education, who stayed in relationships that deadened them because leaving would hurt someone they cared about, who suppressed their true interests, their genuine desires, their authentic self-expression, because it didn't fit what was expected of them. And one day they wake up, often in middle age, often triggered by some crisis, and realize they've been living someone else's life. And the grief is overwhelming. Not just grief for the life they didn't live, but grief for the person they never became, the possibilities they never explored. The authentic self they abandoned in favor of a performance that pleased everyone except themselves. Your essence dies in the cage of others' expectations because essence is radically individual. It's the specific way you uniquely exist, the particular gifts and interests and perspectives that belong only to you. But the cage demands conformity. It rewards similarity. It punishes deviation. And in trying to become what others want, you destroy what's genuinely yours. The seventh place is the prison of your own rigid identity. This might seem contradictory. Haven't we been talking about losing yourself, about becoming inauthentic? How can your own identity be a prison? But this is Heidegger's most subtle insight. The person who clings too tightly to any fixed definition of themselves, I'm the responsible one, I'm the creative one, I'm the logical one, I'm not the kind of person who does that. That person has imprisoned themselves in a concept, in a story, in an image that may have been true once but isn't the full truth now. Human existence is characterized by possibility. You are not a fixed entity. You are a being capable of change, of growth, of transformation. But when you identify too strongly with any particular version of yourself, you close down the possibility of becoming something more, something different, something you can't yet imagine. The prison of rigid identity says, this is who I am, and I will defend this version of myself against any evidence that suggests I might be or become something else. It says, I've figured out my personality type, my strengths and weaknesses, my limitations, and I will live within these boundaries for the rest of my life. But what if those boundaries are too narrow? What if the you think you know is just a small slice of who you might become? What if the identity you're defending is actually preventing your own evolution? I've watched people refuse opportunities because that's not who I am. Reject experiences because I'm not that kind of person. Dismiss possibilities because I don't do that. And each refusal, each rejection, each dismissal shrinks the space of who they might become. The irony is that in trying to protect their identity, they're actually killing it, because identity at its deepest level isn't a fixed thing to be protected. It's an ongoing process of becoming, of self-creation, of choosing and re-choosing who you are in each moment. Heidegger understood that authentic existence requires what he called anticipatory resoluteness, the ability to project yourself into chosen possibilities, to commit to becoming while remaining open to the ways that becoming might transform you in unexpected directions. This means holding your identity lightly, knowing yourself well enough to have coherence and integrity, but not so rigidly that you can't change. Being committed to your values and your path, but remaining open to the possibility that new experiences might reveal aspects of yourself you didn't know existed. The person trapped in rigid identity often seems strong, decisive, clear about who they are. But beneath that apparent strength is fragility, because their entire sense of self depends on not changing, on maintaining the story they've told themselves about who they are. And when life inevitably brings experiences that challenge that story, failure in an area they thought defined them, success in an area they thought wasn't theirs, feelings they thought they'd never have, they experience not just disappointment, but existential crisis. Your essence dies in the prison of rigid identity, because essence is dynamic. It's not a thing you have, but a process you are. It's the ongoing unfolding of your unique way of being in the world, and this unfolding requires flexibility, openness, willingness to be surprised by yourself, permission to become someone you couldn't have predicted you'd be. So now you know the places, the marketplace of comparison, the echo chamber of borrowed beliefs, the comfort zone of safe predictability, the performance of perpetual productivity, the numbness of constant distraction, the cage of others' expectations, the prison of rigid identity. But knowing isn't enough, because you'll still be pulled toward these places. They're seductive. They promise safety, belonging, purpose, clarity, and they do provide these things, at least superficially, at least temporarily. The question isn't how to avoid these places entirely. That's impossible. You live in a world that creates them, that normalizes them, that sometimes requires them. The question is, how do you recognize when you're in one of these places? How do you notice the feeling of departure, that subtle sense that you're leaving yourself behind? And what do you do when you notice? Heidegger's answer was simple but demanding. Choose yourself. Choose consciously. Choose from your own genuine understanding rather than from borrowed beliefs, from comparison, from expectation. Choose in a way that honors the full possibility of your existence rather than the comfort of the familiar, the safety of conformity, the efficiency of productivity. This doesn't mean becoming selfish. It doesn't mean ignoring others or rejecting social connection. It means bringing genuine presence to your choices rather than sleepwalking through them. It means pausing long enough to ask, is this what I actually want, or is this what I think I should want? Is this who I really am or who I'm performing being? Is this moving me toward authentic existence or away from it? And here's what happens when you start choosing yourself, when you start extracting yourself from these dangerous places. You become more real, not louder or more dramatic or more visible, just more real, more present, more genuinely yourself. People notice, not because you're trying to be noticed, but because authenticity has a quality that can't be faked. There's a solidity to the person who has stopped performing, stopped comparing, stopped hiding. There's a depth to the person who has chosen their own path rather than following the well-worn trails everyone else walks. And yes, this choice will cost you. Some people won't understand. Some relationships will change or end. Some doors will close, but other doors will open, doors that lead to experiences, connections, and possibilities that were never available to the version of you that was living inauthentically. Because here's the truth. The places where your essence dies aren't just destructive. They're also in their own way comfortable. They're familiar. They're what everyone else is doing. Leaving them means entering uncertainty, facing the unknown, building a life that might not look like anyone else's. But that's exactly the point. Your life isn't supposed to look like anyone else's. You have one existence, one chance to be specifically and uniquely you, to discover what emerges when you stop trying to be anything other than what you genuinely are. And the world needs this. It needs people who have stopped performing and started being, who have stopped consuming borrowed beliefs and started thinking for themselves, who have stopped hiding in comfort and started engaging with genuine challenge, who have stopped producing for the sake of productivity and started creating from authentic interest, who have stopped distracting themselves and started being present, who have stopped living for others' expectations and started honoring their own truth, who have stopped defending rigid identities and started allowing themselves to become. The world needs people who are awake, who are real, who haven't lost themselves in the dangerous places but have found themselves by choosing to leave. This is your possibility, not someday, not when conditions are perfect, not when you've figured everything out. Now, in this moment, with this choice, and this one, and this one. The dangerous places will always be there, always calling you back, always promising ease and safety and belonging. But you'll know them now. You'll recognize the feeling. And in that recognition, you'll have a choice you didn't have before. The choice to stay yourself, to remain awake, to keep becoming, to live from your essence rather than from the borrowed, the compared, the comfortable, the productive, the distracted, the expected, the fixed. This is not easy. Heidegger never promised it would be easy, but it's the only way to live authentically, the only way to arrive at the end of your life and recognize the person you've been, the only way to die as yourself rather than as a collection of performances and borrowed identities and unrealized possibilities. So walk carefully through these places. Notice when you're in them. Feel the departure of your essence. And when you feel it, choose. Choose yourself. Choose presence. Choose authenticity. Choose the difficult path of becoming who you actually are rather than the easy path of becoming what these places want you to be. Because in the end, that's all any of us really have. One life, one chance. One irreplaceable existence that will never happen again. And the greatest tragedy isn't failing. It isn't struggling. It isn't being imperfect. The greatest tragedy is reaching the end and realizing you never showed up. You were always somewhere else, in one of these dangerous places, living a borrowed life, performing a constructed self, losing your essence one small compromise at a time until nothing genuine remained. Don't let that be your story. Your essence is still here, still waiting, still possible, even if you've spent years in these dangerous places. Even if you've lost yourself so many times, you've forgotten what finding yourself feels like. It's not too late. It's never too late to choose yourself, to return to yourself, to begin again from what's genuine. The path back isn't mysterious. It's in the next choice, the next moment, the next opportunity to respond authentically rather than automatically, to choose based on your truth rather than others' expectations, to risk the unknown rather than hiding in false safety. Your essence isn't something you need to create or achieve. It's something you need to stop abandoning. Stop leaving it behind in these dangerous places. Bring it with you. Let it guide you. Trust it more than you trust the voices that tell you to conform, to compare, to stay safe, to produce, to distract, to please, to remain fixed. This is the invitation. This is the challenge. This is the possibility that's available right now in this moment for anyone brave enough to choose themselves over the dangerous comfort of losing themselves. And when you make that choice, when you walk out of these places and into your own authentic existence, something extraordinary happens. Not extraordinary in a way that others will necessarily recognize or applaud, but extraordinary in a way that you'll feel deep inside, in the part of you that's been waiting, watching, hoping you'd finally come home to yourself. You'll breathe differently, move differently, see differently, because you'll be living from your essence rather than from borrowed ideas about who you should be. And that changes everything. Not all at once, not dramatically, but deeply, permanently, in ways that ripple out through every aspect of your existence. This is what Heidegger spent his life pointing toward, this return to authentic being, this choice to exist genuinely rather than to merely survive inauthentically, this possibility that's always available but so rarely chosen. Choose it now, choose yourself, choose presence, choose authenticity. The dangerous places will still be there, they'll still call to you, but you'll know them, you'll see them, and in that seeing you'll be free to walk a different path. The path home to yourself.